So, Nate. Recognize this?
Looks like a deck list.
Genius observation, Nate. Of course it's a deck list! That's not what I'm asking you. Where did it come from, Nate?
I have no idea.
Grixis Sultai, Lantern Finity Effect, Control Pox. Splashing white for Martyr of Sands.
Sounds complicated.
Sounds terrible. Like the worst modern deck list I've ever seen.
I wouldn't go that far. The 8-rack deck is...
Stop it! I know you designed this deck. Fine. Don't confess to me. Confess to my partner instead.
Hi, Nate. I'm Mary. Nice to meet you.
Hi, Mary. Nice to meet you.
Listen up, Brew Boy. We can make this easy, or we can sleeve up a stock burn list and register it in your name for the rest of your life.
That's cruel and unusual punishment. Besides, I didn't create that modern deck.
This deck is so bad that per magic law, you should never be allowed to brew again. Look at this. It's a mockery of a mana base, a crime of a curve, a catastrophe of a creature suite. For God's sake, the sideboard is full of basic lands and commander staples!
Can we please talk to a judge? I demand a judge call. It's my right. Judge! Judge!
There's no judge in Magic Jail, buddy. And even if there was, they'd never rule in your favor. You've been ratted out by the person you trusted the most.
What? No way. My teammates would never spill my tech, least of all to a magic cop.
Not a teammate.
Dad?
I'm sorry, Nate. At first, I thought that you had just merged the leftover scraps of your trade binders. And then when the police came to investigate, I suddenly realized that janky pile was a deck.
Dad.
You have 5 seconds to come clean before I call your mother.
No, don't do that.
Oh, no, don't do that.
5, 4, 3, 2. Right, Mrs. Holt, the magic police. Yes, they're both here. Sure, 1 second. Did either of you pick up basic lands for draft night tonight?
With many thousands of cards to choose from, the constructed format known as Modern plays host to a wide variety of available strategies. When you sit down across from another Modern player, you never know what you're going to see. If you play against me, for instance, you might see me discard my entire hand in the first couple turns so that I can resurrect a couple of spirits of dead vampires and summon a zombie fish. And it's not just casual players like me that surprise unsuspecting opponents with niche strategies. Here at Pro Tour Oath of the Gatewatch, there's no dearth of sweet decks to be found. So I'm here with Adrian Sullivan. So Adrian is playing a deck that features one of my favorite cards in all of Magic. Typically, Norin the Wary is kind of notorious for being useless and funny, but you've made a competitive deck out of it. This is a popular deck among some.
Yes.
Right. So Norin is extremely scared. He runs away whenever anybody attacks or anybody casts any spell.
Yep.
So why is this advantageous again?
Okay, all of the times that he comes back, you trigger all kinds of things. Whether it's
Enter the battlefield trigger.
exactly, like a Soul Warden gains you a life, a Genesis Chamber makes a mirror, a Perforos does 2 damage to their face. All this stuff just keeps happening, and it's all because Norin's too scared to do anything.
All right, so I have a question for you.
Yes.
Would you like to see my Norin the Wary impression?
Yes.
I'm here with Mikhail Stroyev. So you're playing a deck that just takes extra turns. Turns after turns after turns with pretty much every spell in Modern that gives you an extra turn. And what are you doing with all these extra turns?
I'm trying to get to a 5 mana or reveal the miracle. from the top deck. So when I begin to get extra turns, I draw a ton of cards, and every turn I played another one turn. Then I put a elixir of immortality, then reshuffle all the time walks into my deck again.
Do you think your opponents enjoy playing against you when you're playing this deck?
I'm sure this is very boring for my opponents because this is a one-sided game. In the big tournaments, opponents never want to surrender. I even describe them how the deck works and say we can go to the game 2 or maybe game 3, but they tell me show me.
Art, I'm here with Zach Elsick, the man who popularized the notorious, the brewtastic Lantern of Insight deck. Zach, you said you love homebrews and wacky ideas for decks. I mean, what attracted you to Lantern of Insight?
I wanted to play something really crazy and out of the norm. I prefer not winning with attacking with creatures. Lantern doesn't have any creatures in it. It seems like a troll deck, but it's really strong.
For a Magic beginner out there, somebody just learning the game, how would you say in one sentence describe what this weird deck does?
I think the simplest way to put it is instead of killing your opponent so you win the game, you just stop them from casting relevant cards. So they can't hurt you with creatures, and they also can't draw anything to stop what you're doing. It's kind of painful and almost like a chokehold.
For the Magic community, every Pro Tour is a special occasion to celebrate the game at its highest level of competition. Pro Tour Oath of the Gatewatch marked the 20th anniversary of the Pro Tour, an occasion worthy of cake and a trip down memory lane.
There are 5 players who are here today and who are competing in the very first Pro Tour, so I would like to invite them here. So I would like to invite Rob Doherty, John Finkel, Darwin Castle, Brian Kieber, and Justin Schneider.
What is it about the game that has attracted you to it to keep coming back and to keep playing at the highest level and trying to win at the highest level year after year over and over again?
I don't know. I like self-abuse. I like failing a lot. I've made a lot of top 8s, but most of the time you go to a Magic tournament, you're pretty disappointed. I'm not gonna make the top 8 this tournament. It's the people, it's the competition. Magic always changes. I played a lot of games in my life, but eventually you just kind of get bored with them. But Magic, it's like always new. The framework is the same, but the specifics are always very different. I think that's really part of what makes Magic special and has kept it around for so long.
Combat. It's an integral part of any game of Magic, and Modern is home to some strange and unusual creatures ready to engage. For our next segment, we let our imaginations determine the victors of these fights, rather than the stats on the cards. Oh, that's right. It's time for Back Alley Brawl, Modern Melee. In a Back Alley Brawl, who wins between the gigantic rat pictured on Might of Old Croza and the Simian Spirit Guide?
I'm going to go with definitely the Simian Spirit Guide. One, it's just a giant ape, and giant apes always win. And 2, it can get a little fancy too, like sometimes it can make some mana, do some other things. So I think it's a little bit scrappier. The giant rat's just a big rat.
I think the rat probably has this. It's very fearsome and very, very mighty. I have found that when it comes to a Back Alley Brawl, intelligence doesn't carry much weight. You want to be bigger, you want to be dumber, and you want to go straight for them. I think the ape's gonna overthink it.
Well, it's a spirit ape, right? It's a spirit, so it shouldn't have a body of any kind. So I think the rat is just like rolling around, the spirit guys are chilling, so I don't think they even fight.
Right, so like the biting kind of just goes through the ghost, exactly. Right? Okay, so, but if he's immaterial, how does the ape win the fight?
No one wins. They both go home. Chill.
All right, ends in a tie. They go home, have a cup of tea together.
It's pretty anticlimactic.
Who wins in a Back Alley Brawl? Between the adorable, lovely Kitchen Finks, and the aardvark-looking Eldrazi Mimic.
I'm gonna have to give this one to the Mimic all the way, because it can mimic literally any colorless creature. It could mimic a Blightsteel Colossus. It could mimic Emrakul. It can certainly find something to mimic to defeat some lowly Kitchen Finks.
Right.
No matter how many Finks there are and how persistent they are.
We're at the finals of the Back Alley Brawl. Nate Price, who wins in a fight between the giant rat pictured on Might of Old Kroza and the Eldrazi Mimic?
Ooh. I'd be willing to bet that the rat, it doesn't get much of an experience doing that. I mean, it is magically enhanced to be that large, so I think that not understanding how its own body works, I mean, I think you and I know this pretty well, like, until you've grown into your gigantic body size, you just be like a bunch of limbs that don't know how they're supposed to move.
Yeah, that was puberty probably for both of us.
I mean, to be honest, it's still me today, but yes, like, so I would be willing to bet that the Eldrazi Mimic, like, I mean, it just gets big, it turns into its own weird, like, aardvark giant ant thing and rips this poor rat to shreds as it's still trying to figure out how legs work.
Well, there you have it. The winner of the Back Alley Brawl is the Eldrazi Mimic. As predicted, dozens of styles of modern decks came to do battle at the Pro Tour, but as the tournament raged on through Saturday, a new menace reared its frightening head. A handful of players had gotten creative in building around the Eldrazi, the hideous alien monsters destroying the plane of Zendikar. These decks seemed unstoppable, at least for one weekend in February. But while the creatures that fought were scary indeed, the players commanding the Eldrazi included some friendly and familiar faces. Frank Lepore, guess what?
Tell me.
We're rolling the camera. You just won the last round of the Swiss.
That's correct.
You've got 4 losses.
Yeah.
What are you thinking right now? What's going through your head?
It's bittersweet, you know, like to come this close to top 8 at my first Pro Tour is amazing. But I was 9th going into that round and then I won, so you know, I couldn't really ask for a better record. I mean,
do you think you're in?
I don't think so. Well, I don't know actually. There's definitely a chance, but I have no idea. I'm gonna say no. I'm gonna say no. I don't think I'm in, and then I'm gonna see what happens.
What's the biggest difference about playing Magic on the Pro Tour versus anywhere else?
I seem to win more.
The top 8 of Pro Tour Oath of the Gatewatch is the story of a big-name player from a little country, and a little-known accountant from Seattle making a big splash on the Pro Tour scene. Sunday, February 7th marked the 3rd career Pro Tour top 8 for one of the Slovak Republic's all-time great players. Fans of the Pro Tour may best remember Ivan Flock for winning Pro Tour M15 on the backs of a flock of sheep, but on this Sunday in Atlanta, Ivan commanded the much more fearsome Eldrazi. In the quarterfinals, Flock sat across from fan favorite and longtime content creator Frank Lepore, who was on a Cinderella run in his first ever Pro Tour. Though Lepore was considered an underdog, he pushed Flock to a 5-game series. But in Game 5, a pair of Flock's alien magic 8-balls predicted Frank's outlook not so good, and so the Slovak advanced to the next bracket. In the semifinals, Flock battled against the only hope that remained of defeating the Eldrazi, the robots. Germany's Patrick Dickmann and his affinity for artificial intelligence had gone undefeated in the constructed rounds of the Pro Tour, and enemies of the Eldrazi everywhere wanted to see him prevail. But Flock deployed a devastating ratchet bomb to blow up Dickmann's attempt to control the series. Flock then sealed the deal in Game 4 with an attack for 10 damage on turn 2 with a Reality Smasher and the Eldrazi that mimicked it. And so, even Flock would advance to the finals 3-1. While Flock was playing in his third top 8, Jashen Tao was playing in just his third Pro Tour. Armed with a potent army of blue and red Eldrazi, the man known as JC more than made up for inexperience with poise and brutality. In the quarterfinals, he vanquished Hall of Famer Shuhei Nakamura, with the final blow coming from this half-alien, half-rainbow looking thing. In the semifinals, Tao played against Hall of Fame mega superstar Luis Scott Vargas, whose effort on the weekend earned him an astounding 6th career top 8 appearance. It's your 6th top 8 of your career. That puts you in extremely elite company if you weren't already an elite company. It's been a few years since your last one. How does it feel to be back there after a few years off?
Well, it's been 5 years, so a few years is even being generous. It's awesome. I mean, the reason I play Magic, or like not the only reason, but a big reason is just I love the Pro Tour and I love doing well at the Pro Tour, and I haven't had that for a while. So it's certainly not all there is to it. I love a lot of aspects of Magic, but this is such a big one, and winning again is awesome.
Against Tao, Scott Vargas looked deep into the eye of Ugin, using its powers to summon the right Eldrazi to put Tao on the brink of elimination. Down 2-1, Tao fought back, once again turning to his Eldrazi Obligator to break the stalemate on the battlefield. And so, JC Tao advanced to the finals, defeating Luis Scott Vargas 3-2. Game 1 of the finals came down to a race of Reality Smashers, which are among the fastest and fiercest Eldrazi. Ivan Flock took the lead in that race, and the finals, 1-0. But Tao turned once again to his trusty Eldrazi Obligator to mount a huge attack against Flock, and even the series at 1 game apiece. Tao continued his assault in Game 3, this time aided by a flying, tentacled, pregnant skeleton. Yep, that's how weird the Eldrazi are. Down 2-1, Ivan Flock mulliganed to 5 cards in Game 4, and couldn't keep up with Tao's collection of creatures. Flock found a few answers, but not enough, and after a few attacks, he extended his hand to congratulate JC Tao as champion of Pro Tour Oath of the Gatewatch. JC, you're an accountant from Seattle, not a lot of Pro Tour experience, but here you are in the top 8, you defeat 2 Hall of Famers, and then a Pro Tour champion to win this Pro Tour. I mean, has the weight of that accomplishment dawned on you yet?
I'm very nervous right now.
Did you ever envision, when you started testing for this Pro Tour with your teammates, that you would go all the way?
No, not at all. In fact, I would have booked a different flight if I had.
Congratulations to JC Tao, the champion of Pro Tour Oath of the Gatewatch. So you equip Trepanation Blade to Ornithopter. Attack. Mill them down to just a few cards left in their library. Then second main phase, use Codex Shredder to flip your own Golgari Grave Troll. And then cast Cruel Ultimatum, dredge back the troll, and then bam! Nourishing Shoal, mind control their Felidar Sovereign, and that's game.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah, sorry we gave you such a hard time. Oh, here, let me get those cups. Deck's brilliant.